This technology is so new that we really have to give people just access to it and let them play with it. We give them guardrails from a legal perspective, from a data privacy, data security perspective, but other than that, let people use it.
Welcome to How AI Happens, a podcast where experts explain their work at the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. You'll hear from AI researchers, data scientists, and machine learning engineers as they get technical about the most exciting developments in their field and the challenges they're facing along the way. I'm your host, Rob Stevenson, and we're about to learn how AI happens. Here with me today on How AI Happens is the Executive Manager for AI and Automation Topics over at Mercedes-Benz, Alex Dogariu. Alex, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good, Rob. Thank you very much. Very happy to be here.
Yeah, pleased to have you. Remind me where you are broadcasting in from?
Today is from Munich, as I live next to Munich, but work in Stuttgart for Mercedes-Benz.
Gotcha. So end of your day, beginning of mine, but we're a global international podcast. So these are the sacrifices we both, in this case, make. Thank you again for being here. I have so much I want to speak to you about, but let's get to know you first. Would you mind sharing a little bit about your background and how you wound up in your current role at Mercedes-Benz?
Sure, totally. So I didn't start out as a straight career path with IT or engineering and then moving into AI here at Mercedes-Benz. I had more of a self-determined path. I started out as a strategy consultant, always in marketing and sales, working for Accenture, and then moved on to be a managing director for a repricing company. We did a repricing for more than 10 million products worldwide. Also getting there in touch the first time with algorithms and AI and that kind of stuff. And at some point, I wanted to get back into corporate and started out back in 2015 at Mercedes-Benz Consulting. There I basically founded and have grown the AI analytics and data practice together with another colleague. And we've grown it to a certain extent. And then I was asked to join Mercedes-Benz directly in charge of digital topics and also AI topics. And that's when we started our journey back in 2019, directly at the corporate headquarters.
So the need for this team at Mercedes-Benz, or at any company really, may be assumed to the listeners or to yourself for the people who understand this technology deeply. But could you take us back to that moment when you were consulting for Mercedes-Benz and you took stock of the organization and thought, okay, what you really need is a team dedicated to XYZ?
That was the time when a lot of people would experiment with first algorithms, first regressions, and also would work with chat and voice bots. And especially back in 2015, 16, there was a real hype around chatbots and AI, driven also by IBM Watson. So we could definitely see that everybody doing the same projects over and over again would not make much sense. And we'd have to come to more like a platform thinking and center of competence, center of excellence setup to bundle the little knowledge that there is and the experts and also the projects together into one organizational unit. And so that's when we started building the first, hubs where we try to enable AI projects to run smoothly and leverage the knowledge, as well as bring, for example, on a chatbot platform, more than one chatbot. So not everybody has to do the same work over and over again, but can leverage what others have already built and build upon it. From there, it took basically into several directions. Analytics got quite big. Descriptive analytics had been there for a while, but as you know, with descriptive analytics, you do a lot of analysis, then you have a lot of dashboards. They're not really AI driven. And what do you do with the insights? Nothing. And with machine learning, you could do first algorithms for recommendations, to do individual one-to-one marketing and whatnot. And that's when we started really building products that have real impact on the business that we see, and even automate stuff and that kind of things. Yeah.
What are some examples of the output of descriptive analytics once you had kind of tacked on some machine learning to really drive business insights?
Well, as I said, descriptive analytics per se is just data visualized in a certain sense. Maybe you make certain correlations visible through some dashboards, but they don't really add value. The cool thing is when you automate stuff and have a machine learning algorithm that's using supervised learning to then improve certain kind of forecasts, for example, for Mercedes-Benz, how many cars you might sell in market XYZ, and you would compare that with your traditional forecasting methods, or you would use it for pricing, or you would do it for discount policies, or many, many things where you could use AI to influence, the bottom line of your business. And also in automation, you could use bots to automate customer service. When, for example, there's no agents live 24/7 on weekends, holidays, after working on business hours, you want to have somebody who's still there. And a website can be a quite tough thing to navigate, to find the right information. So a bot might help with that. So there you could create some efficiencies and also improve customer experience. So the fields are quite diverse, I'd say. And if you then go into production and purchasing department and whatnot, you can go into supplier management, you can optimize your production and supply chains to reduce downtimes, so you can identify error patterns early on and then find fixes quite quickly by using AI. So there's a lot of applications you can do throughout the company and the value chain to basically increase efficiency and in sales and marketing, of course, increase our revenue.
So we've kind of drawn a circle around it a little bit, but we did jump into the weeds here. Would you mind just kind of explaining how you characterize your role? I want to make sure we hone in on that before we get too specific.
My role is basically consisting of two important tasks. One is the whole strategy around data and AI. So I'm trying to do that for marketing and sales especially, but I'm also tagged into some larger corporate initiatives that do it for all of Mercedes-Benz. The second part next to strategy is the whole operational part where I especially work on conversational AI and automation, thereby leveraging classical NLU, speech to text, text to speech to build bots of any kind of sorts of style. And we offer that services to all of the company. And at the same time, we mix in automation, be it robotic process automation, which is not necessarily AI, but can have it depending on if you have picture recognition or you have some workflows that are not deterministic, but rather heuristic. And then we also now, since about 15, 16, 18 months, also mix in generative AI where necessary to do content summarization, information retrieval, and, creative work and whatever is necessary. So my job is strategy, conversational AI and automation. And in conversational AI and automation, I'd say a triangular of mixing conversational AI with automation and generative AI to build solutions that mostly, I'd say, create efficiencies for my part.
With chatbots, I have sort of an existential question about chatbots. How realistic do they need to be when it comes to the conversational part? Do they need to like pass the Turing test, or is it more important that they just get the user to where they're going? I'm sort of wondering, when a user encounters a chatbot, is it important that they think it's a human, or is like, oh, I'm talking to a bot, like here's what I need to say to get where I need to go? What's your take on that?
We have the firm belief that we need to tell people that this is a bot and they're not talking to a human being. And for us, bots are really a helpful, assistant that can help, as I said, outside business hours, weekends, holidays. And for me, it doesn't have to be human, as long as it gets you to do whatever you want to do. And it's not just fetching information, providing you with an answer like, can you help me? How do I pair my phone via Bluetooth with my head unit? That's a quite complicated process. You have to do a lot of steps on your phone. Once you've done it, it's super easy, but it's, with everything new, you need to understand the rundown of it. And then you don't want to look into the owner's manual. You don't want to go to the websites, or just want to get an answer for that specific problem for your car model. Or if you want to know, for example, hey, I'm thinking about buying an electric car. What is the range of the car? Does the EQB or EQC have higher range? What is the trunk volume? So, for example, for hybrid cars, you obviously always compare trunk volumes and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things in range and whatnot. And there, a bot can retrieve data way faster than any human and help you in that spot. Also, there's this transactional stuff. So you not only use it to retrieve information efficiently, but you can also do stuff like, I want to book an appointment, I want to buy this car, where's the trade-in offer, what is the next dealer to me, and then whatever, depending on the use case, it can forward you to the right form, or it can do it for you. And that's the transactional stuff. So, and then the third part is, of course, navigating the website. So we all know the search field for every website has it, but they're usually not very good at understanding your intent, what you want. So that's also one thing that bots can help a lot with. And then also you have to think about the fourth component is to bridge the gap to communication to humans. So when no humans are available because it's, 2 a.m. in the morning, you can still book an appointment to have a personal consultation with an agent or a salesperson or a service agent whenever you want to, and can use that tool to do it. So I'd say they're useful helpers. They're not replacing humans, at least not of now, and they don't have to be human perfectly. Everybody understands that they're not there yet. However, with the ascent of generative AI and its capabilities, the quality of the bots has increased tremendously. And by now, GPT-4 and Palm 2 and so are very, very good at mimicking human thought processes, emotions, and generating content that sounds like human beings. So that changed the whole perception of bots, but also the expectations. So I think customers by now or users expect more from bots than just get XYZ done for me or retrieve that information. So it might be that we need to add more human emotions and natural way of communicating to these virtual assistants than we might have done 2 years ago.
With ChatGPT 4, there's sort of a do your own research, wink and nudge that kind of happens alongside it. Like you cannot just take this output as the word of God. So with your own chatbots, how are you making sure that the information and solutions they're presenting are accurate? Because it's like you say, it's not as simple. It's like, how do I reset my password? You know, it's like, I want to order a car. I want to schedule an appointment. I want to connect to Bluetooth. These are more complicated things it's solving. So how are you measuring that accuracy?
That's a very good question, and one that has been concerning us for the past 18 months or 2 years, even since we're looking into foundation and generative AI models. So, on the one hand, is that we don't have a bare naked large language model talking to users. We have a classical NLU approach with bots that does a pre filtering of incoming inquiries. And only when these inquiries fit the data sources that fed the large language model, not the foundation model itself, but that we fine-tuned it on, then we forward the request to the foundation model to, for example, GPT-4, whatever, to answer that question. So that pre-filtering already makes sure that we don't send questions that it cannot answer. Now, from those that we think that it can answer, we have built in several quality gates to make sure that the incoming inquiries are correct. So there's a scoring model that compares then the given or generated answer to a predefined data set and compares it also to the data source. So one first step is, of course, information retrieval, then maybe a summarization, and then you have that answer that's from GPT, and you take it and compare it to the original chunks that you have retrieved from the original data set and make sure with a scoring model that they have, closeness or similarity. There are services out there that do that extract, for example, entities from generated text and then also look at the links if they're valid, if they're not, hallucinated. They check whether the whole sentence structure makes sense from a logical perspective and that kind of stuff. But we do it through several quality gates and scoring models. And of course, we can't test for everything. So we have built an automated testing engine that tries to fire as many possible questions to the AI, then have it generate answers, then have those answers be reviewed by another system and scored and compared to each other. So we can build up a data set that allows us to tell us how accurate the system is. And through other thresholds, like classical NLU would have something like accuracy. And you say, if you're not sure below a level of 0.7 or something, don't answer the question. Say, I don't know, please rephrase it. Similar things you can do here as well to make sure that whatever output comes is accurate. And then also you can adjust the temperature, as everyone probably is aware of who's working with this generative AI models. And you can tell it, how far is it allowed to deviate from the original data source. That's just a few things we do. Beyond that, we do a few more, which we have not or do not want to talk about, as those we've developed with a lot of effort to reduce the amount of hallucinations and wrongful information. So by now, I'd say we don't have hallucinations, but sometimes, depending on the information that is retrieved from the original source, some things might be left out. And so you get an answer that's correct, but it might miss maybe one little part. And so that's something that we're still working on to make sure that we collect everything that's relevant to answer one question to the user. And that's something that's more difficult because information retrieval is also art of its own.
That's a nuanced problem because in that example, it might be enough information to answer the question at hand, right? So you have to think a little deeper than the question answer to say, hey, you need this additional information. Is that right?
Exactly. And I'll give you an example. So when a customer asks us a question about a technical detail or a functionality of our vehicles, and it contains, for example, warning labels and stuff, we've marked those in the original data. And we made sure that those are always being extracted and played out word for word to the user. So we don't miss out definitely on any legal or I'd say compulsory things that we need to display with the answer. So we chopped up the answer into several parts, and only parts of it are generated. Others are really copied out of the original source.
So it sounds like, in addition to chatbots, you also were sort of focused writ large on enabling team members with AI tools and processes. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So everyone wants AI, right? That is sort of this magical Thor's hammer that everyone wants to have on their team. How do you organizationally assess whether there's an opportunity or a need to enable a specific team with a tool like this?
Again, a very good question. To be honest, I would love to answer that from my personal subjective point of view and not from maybe what is the official, I'd say, out there common understanding or best practice. In my opinion, this technology is so new that we really have to give people just access to it and let them play with it. Even if this sounds okay, but what is the efficiency gain? How do we know if they use it in a good manner or proper manner, blah, blah. We give them guardrails from a legal perspective, from a data privacy, data security perspective, but other than that, let people use it. It's like the internet. The first time you had search engines, you were lost. What do I do with it? What's the search result? I'm confused. And the same's happening now. People see it, and of course, the first thing they do, they check large language models for knowledge. They ask questions. Well, GPT is trained on data back from November 2021. If it doesn't have access to the web, you get an outdated answer or maybe an hallucinated answer. We need to first educate them what it can do, what it can't do, and giving them certain guardrails. And that's my opinion. So in step one, for me, it was important or is still important, give everybody access to it in a safe environment where the data they put in is not going to train the foundation model, so we don't spill any secrets or internal data, but they can experiment with it. Out of that, we should have a incubator or center of competence, whatever you want to call it, where people can go to if they have an idea or found some quick wins or use cases where they can have a quick check. Is this sound technological wise? Can you do it? Is it expensive? Do we need to fine tune? Can we use something out of the box? And once they have that understanding and do a POC, then they can move beyond that and build their own environment in the cloud or wherever they want to host it and build that end-to-end product that they want, where they want to infuse generative AI in it. But step one is get them acquainted to it, get rid of the fear that they have of using it, because a lot of people are still like, oh, I don't want to touch this. This is weird. I heard this and that about it. So it's this voodoo magic. Give people access to it. Let them figure it out themselves. People are great at figuring out how to use stuff in a good and proper manner. And once they've done that, they will come up with use cases. We don't have to have a central team that thinks everything forward. They will come with the right use cases as they understand their business processes and needs best. And based on that, we will then prioritize use cases based on size, impact, whatever, costs, and then go into an implementation mode with a COC where real experts are, center of competence, center of excellence, whatever you want to call it, that helps them you really get that live. So this is my personal take on that. So that's why I put a lot of emphasis on educating people about the technology, providing them with information and access. And when I mean access, not just here it is, go ahead, but here are guardrails, what you shouldn't do. This is what you can expect as behavior from that. And here are first use cases as an ideation to start out with. And once they try out the first use cases, they're like, oh my God, this is awesome. This is really good. Wow. Can I get for my whole team, my department, my function? Everybody wants access. They're like, this is amazing. I didn't think it works that well. Now I understand why it answered with outdated data. Now I know why it hallucinates. I know how to circumvent it. And then they come up with really cool ideas. And once you get them into the more awesome stuff of really building custom pipelines for their products, where they can ingest their own data sources and whatnot, wow, they really take off. So that's when the real fun starts for me, because you start solving real world issues. Yeah.
There's like a eureka moment that happens for folks once they've kind of shaken off the fear a little bit.
Absolutely. And they understand the limitations. I mean, they're not dumb. They understand, yeah, you can use it for research purposes, but it might hallucinate now and then. So one colleague of mine always says, it's 90% of the time right. So you still need to have the capability to discern whether what's providing you in terms of information is correct. You can't just do it. There's this example of this lawyer that used it in the US, I think. He screwed up because he didn't check it. And you shouldn't do that. I mean, if you know the technology, exactly that wouldn't happen to you because you wouldn't have false expectations and you would know to double check before using the output.
So are we mainly speaking about enabling the team with third-party vendors, or is Mercedes-Benz building these tools internally? Is it both, I suppose?
So, in my opinion, there's no one solution. There is no just third party. I think open source plays a key role in this whole topic, and it's growing super fast. I think open source is outgrowing even what big vendors are offering right now, be it like Google, Microsoft, or AWS. And this space of open source is something to really keep an eye on. Of course, getting as a large corporation access to open source is always a little bit more tricky. You need to host the models yourself. It's not as easy, it's not like you go into a restaurant and the cook cooks the meal for you. It's more like do it yourself. You need to cook it at home, so there's some extra effort in it, but very often the taste's better. So checking out open source is super important. And I would say definitely as a corporation, as Mercedes-Benz, we're looking to both what corporate is offering, what open source is offering, and then we're going to fine tune models to our needs, which we do a lot because these models don't know our internal data, they don't have access to our data. And only when we mix that in, then the valuable output comes. Because as you know, whenever we don't provide a specific prompt or data, it starts to make up stuff. It starts to fill in the gaps. So the more we provide it with, the better the result we get. So definitely fine-tuning models, adjusting them for our purposes, for our data, and then mixing in available models as well as open source and maybe self-cooked ones is the right approach. Use case dependent, I'd say.
So any sufficiently successful or advanced or useful open source project, open source models, it feels like it will be corporatized at some point, right? Like some entrepreneur will draw a circle around it and then package it and sell it to people. And there's benefits associated with that. Like now they have some kind of compliance. There's some sort of like expectation. Like if you find this great GitHub project that you love and you want to use this model, will it be supported, forever or even for long enough for you to use it? So there are advantages to using a vendor, but it sounds like you're saying that this open source approach will always outpace that level of corporatization. Also, there's this notion of just like models kind of becoming commoditized. Like these models you can kind of get off the shelf and tweak to your own needs. Those, because of the way the open source community operates, there's no need to really pay for them. Is that how you feel?
I don't think payment is the key component here, though it for sure plays a role as well. It's really about what the models offer in terms of quality and abilities to solve problems that we have or business problems, that we want to tackle. And so whatever model fits best, we'll take it. When I said open source outpaces what the large ones are doing, then I mean in terms of specialized models and so forth. The bigger ones will always have, like OpenAI with Microsoft or Google, they will have more resources for sure. They will have more GPUs and whatnot. But in the end, the small ones really, or open source community develops custom solutions for specific problems, which the big ones will never tackle. So looking at that will always be beneficial. And in terms of open source, you said it before, one thing is that they can be outdated, they're no longer supported. So that happened to us as well with certain things we did in the past with machine learning. Well, then you need to switch a model, retrain it. It's not the end of the world. What I'm more concerned of is the regulatory framework. So if governments come up with now, for example, in the US or the European Union, they want to have certificates for certain AI models that they're certified and what they can do is certified. That could be an issue for open source and for smaller startups and stuff because they won't have the resources to go through all the tests and hoops. It's a little bit comparable to the pharmaceutical industry. So if you want to have a blockbuster drug, it's so expensive to do because all of the certifications, not only the development, sometimes the certification is more expensive. And the same could happen to AI, which in my opinion would stifle innovation. So I would not advocate for it, though I understand the need for at least a certain type of regulation to avoid the Terminator scenario, which everybody is more and more concerned about. I'm not yet concerned about it, but I trust the experts that there is something on the horizon we should be. And as Mercedes-Benz, we, for example, care a lot about it. That's why we got our AI principles. I gave a TEDx talk about it with explainability and whatnot. There's a lot of stuff in there that definitely is applicable to generative AI, and it's not fully yet clear how these models will evolve over time. So keeping in mind on regulatory frameworks and certification might make a corporation like Mercedes move the safe way and go into using the large models instead of the open source.
I'll make sure to link to the TEDx talk you gave in the show notes because it's definitely worth a watch. Well, we have a couple of minutes left here. I'd love to hear, you share what was it you were trying to express and accomplish at a high level with that talk?
I wanted to make people aware that AI has not only benefits, but also downsides, and we should account for those. And also that we use AI in a responsible way and manner. Because very often we just simply apply it. It's like, one hammer and you got a nail and you just want to fix it. But it can have bias in the data, which we now find out these large language models have, depending on the data that has gone into the training. And the same goes for, bias. And then you have the explainability issue, and there's a lot of stuff. So that's why I say raising awareness and making sure that people use technology in a responsible manner. And since there's no general available, driver's license for using AI, I think everybody who's working on it should be a little bit more cautious about it, not just an enthusiast that applies it, without thinking about consequences that it might have.
Would that be possible, a driver's license for AI?
I don't know. Maybe. There's no driver's license for the internet as well, and people are doing crazy sorts of stuff on the internet. So as I said, it's always a balancing act, the same with certification of AI models. You don't want to stifle innovation with legislation and laws and compliance rules, but to a certain extent, it's necessary and it makes sense. So like a netiquette on Twitter, which people adhere to, and there's somebody cleaning up the space from too much bad actors, it's not bad to have that. I think that's a good thing. And so making sure that people don't develop AI applications that are harmful or use them in a not very responsible manner is a good thing.
Yep, of course. For more on that, check out the TEDx talk. But right now, we are creeping up on optimal podcast length, Alex. So at this point, I would just say thank you so much for being with me here and sharing about some of the work you're doing over there at Mercedes-Benz. I've loved chatting with you today.
Same here, Rob. Thank you very much. And to all the AI enthusiasts out there, keep going and let's make it a better world with this new technology.
How AI Happens is brought to you by Sama. Sama provides accurate data for ambitious AI. Specializing in image, video, and sensor data annotation and validation for machine learning algorithms in industries such as transportation, retail, e-commerce, media, medtech, robotics, and agriculture. For more information, head to sama.com.